Hi, and welcome back to another of these Design With Me project videos. Isn't it annoying whenever real life gets in the way of your hobby? I brought you out to the workshop here for a little test between the LED lights that you saw me make one up on the last video. That's now been put into a prototype case. Modular case as well. We'll go into that in a minute and show you the features of it. But we're just going to do a little bit of a test between the output of this in light and comparing it to what the video lights that I had previously. That's these NEEWER brand lights, which says 650 lux at 1 meter. So I've got a stand just somewhere just up here, out of shot, which I will attach this light to, and then we can see the relative increase and what peak it gets to. Obviously I've got other lights on here in the workshop, but I'll show you what this can get to. So I'll just literally hold this up at this stand and turn it on. There we go, we're peaking about 1100. Now let's see what my light here can do. I'm going to have to do something a little bit naughty and tip my bench power supply up because some idiot cut the wires too short going to this. So anyway, you can see what we've got here. We've got 12.8 volts. I'm just going to adjust that, so we'll take this down because the design was for 12 volts. And I shall limit the current to 1 amp because that again was the design, was 12 volts at 1 amp. So we'll take this and we'll put it up in the same spot, and then we shall turn it on. So there we go, 1200 approximate lux. And if I shade, if I just move this away, you can see that actually we're not at our full spec, 932. So if I just go and increase that so that it is up at the full, or as close to 1 amp as possible, and bring it back about 1250. So these are very efficient little LEDs. What I'll do is I'll bring you in a little bit closer and I can show you this prototype, and also we will show a little bit of a journey and why it's been so long between the last video and this one. I've had rather a lot of failed prototypes and I've been learning quite a lot in the process. So here we go, a little bit of a closer look at this little prototype case. The idea that I wanted was to have something that was modular. So on the back here, you can see we've got these slots like dovetails all the way around. And this is so that various configurations can be made by having 2 stacked together, or 2 stacked and 2 next to them, or in whatever configuration that you might want, or with whatever holder or accessory that you might want to be able to design for these. So this is the eventual end of the design, hopefully, because I've printed a number of these cases out. The files for these, for just this case, will be available, hopefully linked in the description below. So as you can see, I've got like an end cap here that's been printed, and the circuit board just easily slides in, or it can just wedge in and out. We have access for ventilation and or cables, and the same is true at the end as well. But there's been a bit of a journey to getting to this stage. I started off using some transparent PETG filament and printed out various thicknesses to be able to find something that would diffuse without reducing the light significantly, but that, that would diffuse it. And so I settled on one that's about 1.4 or so millimeters thick, depending on how tightly I grip that. This base is printed out of transparent PETG, but the ones I went on to print, I printed out of just plain white. But in order to get to this design with a snap fitting lid and with modular cutouts, I went through a number of iterations because for some strange reason I really wanted to make it a one-piece system. This is one of the failed versions. So I wanted to print sort of basically hinges that would come in and that this could close over. But the problem, as you can see, I was getting the hinge was not printing out or not folding correctly and would have required heat to be applied to it. And it just got too complicated. Plus, each one of these was taking me about 6 hours to print, which is a long time in your spare time. So after trying numerous iterations of this, I finally saw sense and abandoned it and went back to this system. So I said that this was a modular system. I've got a number of these. So we can put them together. Let me zoom you out a bit. So you can see I made a modular base or backing for this with 1/4 inch 20 thread per inch thread on the back and on the base, so it can be mounted on either a tripod or a similar accessory. You can see these shapes. Well, these fit very nicely together, so you can make a large modular light. Of course, these will have to be glued into position. The design has been for a slight press fit, so it can sort of hold itself together. So you can end up with quite a substantial sized light, video light. And then of course we have some pieces here. These have a hollow section through them, and at the ends you may or may not be able to make out, but there is a recessed area here which you can just drill through to get into that hollow section for cabling to run through. So you can have, and even whenever you just press fit all of these bits together, without any glue, it starts to stiffen up. I can also apply these little strengthening plates. And I'm also designing a system of barn doors for controlling light spill, or accessories to add a grid onto the front of it. So we have a modular light system. I'm still designing extra bits and accessories for it, but as you can see, it's very flexible. You can, as long as you can print out these accessories, and I'm making them all to fit or to be able to be printable on a 220 by 220 millimeter print bed for a 3D printer, then you can print out and make actually quite large video lights. So next is going to be actually gluing all of this together and installing the circuit boards, wiring it up and bringing it to life and light. So there isn't a lot with regards to post-processing of these prints once they come off the printer. I've been printing with supports because there's some areas on the underneath here which are just flat, unsupported. It would be a real mess otherwise. So it's just a case of taking away any supports and then just using a needle file, a pointed, this one's a diamond one, it doesn't have to be, but you just get rid of any small bits of support material that may have stayed stuck. And that's pretty much it with regards to the post-processing. So just a note on what I'm using to stick all of this together. I use just this industrial grade super glue. You could use hot melt glue. You would have to be careful because the heat of that glue will soften the plastic, and so you could find some warpage, or that things didn't move, or if you pressed it too hard it would deform. But of course, working with super glue, always work with gloves on, and whatever you do after you finish super gluing, don't pick your nose for at least 2 or 3 minutes, just in case you've got some glue left on your gloves. Don't ask me how I know this.